Hey there.
Good evening.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for being so flexible and getting here. And it was a little bit earlier than what you were scheduled to.
No
So I know
worries.
you probably had to go and make yourself all up and all that kind of stuff, right? You were in your sweatpants running around your house or something, right?
Yeah.
That's what I would have been doing. All right, I think we have everybody here. So we'll just jump in if you're ready.
Let's rock.
Awesome. Well, again, just welcome and thank you for being here. Thank you. Congratulations on being one of our final four. Really excited about you and getting a chance to talk with you and hear from you and hear kind of what your thoughts are. And so we're really excited about all that. Thank you for going through all the process and giving us all your background checks and all the stuff that we got to do and all the information you had to provide. I know that took some time, and so I really appreciate your doing that, and really thank you for your patience as we've gone through this process too, with the COVID-19 outbreak and having to change all this and everything literally changing throughout the world over the last week or 2 weeks. It has been just crazy. So I really appreciate your patience, and then really for jumping on here with us and being willing to do this with us as well.
Absolutely no problem. And yeah, it's a minute by minute right now changes. I tell
Yes,
you, it's crazy.
Yes, it is. I'll kind of give you the timeline on kind of what we are, kind of we're operating under. We interviewed 2 people last night, and then 2 tonight, and then we'll take some time over the next few days to kind of just digest all this information, and then we plan to get together next week, probably in the same format, so that we can deliberate and talk about each of you guys and figure out kind of where we go. When your ears start burning, you'll know we're in deliberations, right?
Exactly.
Right. So we will we'll post these interviews on Monday. So these will be live Monday morning. I think at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, they'll go live. And so we'll start tonight by allowing you to just tell us something about yourself and something that you might want us to know, and maybe something that we might not have gleaned from your paperwork that you sent us or your resume that you sent us or anything pertinent that you feel we should know. And then we'll go and each member of the board will ask you a question. There's 5 of us, and so we'll go in an order around, and we'll ask you a question, and there could be a follow-up question from each from a board member. We haven't done that yet, but there could be a follow-up question based off what your answers are. And just know though that we're asking you the same questions that we've asked everybody else, so everybody's getting the same questions asked to each person. So any questions about that at all?
No, that's very good.
Awesome. Well, we're just going to turn it over to you then, and you can start us off.
Okay, well, first of all, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to be here in front of you all this evening, and I am very honored to be in the final 4, and I'm excited to share some things with myself about you and learn a little bit about each one of you as we go along. So my family and I moved here in 2001 from Florida, so I spent most of my years in Florida, my young years in Florida, and we bought a car dealership. And I worked with my husband there, but knew I was missing public education. And so that's what prompted me to run for the school board. Miss Virginia Harville was retiring, and she came and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this?" And I thought, I don't know, what does a school board member do? So I went and met with all of the school principals that I would be representing to figure out what it is they would need from me and if it would fit into the schedule that I was working at the dealership. And it worked out perfectly, and it kept me involved in public education while being in the business sector. Enjoyed that time immensely and learned education from a whole new point of view. Being a school board member is thankless a lot of times, and people don't realize how many hours that goes into behind the scenes of what goes on in the school district. So from there, I went back in the classroom. We sold the dealership at the market crash, and I knew I had to go back to education. So I went back in the classroom, and I worked at Lakeland Elementary for 2 years, taught special education there. In the meantime, got my master's degree. And from there, the rest of it's on my resume. I've been married for 24 years this summer. I've known my husband since I was 14 years old, and we've been together a long, long time. We have 2 children. I have a 21-year-old who attends SMU in Texas, and I have a 17-year-old who will attend LIU in the fall. When I started in education, I actually started in 11th grade. We did a work-based learning program. So in 11th grade, I would go to the elementary school and I would spend one period a day there. And then in my senior year, I got to spend a half day. And that's when I fell in love with special education. My teacher, who was 4th grade, sent me down the hall to the special ed room because she said I had the patience of Job. So public education is ingrained in me. I'm extremely passionate about it, and I love children more than, I love children and animals. Those are my favorite 2 things. So that leads me into one thing that's really unique about me. And so my husband and I were in college, and my mom was helping out and his parents were not. So we started our own business, and we actually imported and bred reptiles from all over the world. And so that's how we paid for college. So I've owned just about every reptile. So if you have a snake that comes up on your porch, just give me a call and I'll help you out.
I thought you were about to say tigers.
Well, we thought about that. We didn't quite get there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. That's really cool. That's cool to think about. I know where to bring all my exotic animals now is to you for sure. Okay, so we're gonna jump in, and so we're gonna start with Mr. Lamar. So we're gonna have Mr. Lamar ask you the first question.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Price, for being here this evening. I know that you would like to do other things, but thanks for coming. Here's my first question. Please explain how you would develop a school system budget and tell us who you would involve and how you would involve those people.
Apologize, I dropped my writing pencil.
Do I need to repeat that?
Nope, you're good. I got a school-based budget.
You had to leave us with it.
Yes. So there are 2 ways that, school-based budget can be developed, and that's a zero-based budget and the conventional way. Most of us use a conventional way to develop a budget, and that's by looking at the previous year's budget and building upon that. Currently, I involve my entire department in building the budget. I think it takes all of us to understand what the schools need. And I think sometimes we lose sight of the district budget. It's really there to support schools. And so from there, we also get with the principals, and I will go sit down with them and ask them specifically what they need and what they want. And of course, we're going to go with what they need first. And if there's money left, we go after those wants. We look at prioritizing the budget based on the strategic plan. Everything should be connected to a goal. And so that is what we set our department to do, as well as our principals. And we build that strategic plan as a team. So all of it should tie together. And then we use the district plan or our federal funds to come in and supplement what we aren't able to do with our general fund budget. So for us, it involves all of our school leadership, which in turn, they are involving their teachers. They're asking their teachers for wish list or for things that they think would be would help supplement the programs or be ways to improve their schools. So we involve as many people as we can, for sure. You all are the most important. You set the goals for the district, and so we need to make sure that we are fiscally responsible and we use the funds to support your vision for the district. And at the same time, making sure we meet every single student's needs. So it's definitely a collaborative effort, and we need to spend a lot of time making sure that we have a budget that is fiscally responsible and, again, meeting every student's needs.
Thank you very much.
Hey, so just as an FYI, you'll see us looking down. We're taking a lot of notes. So if we happen to be looking out, we're not watching TV or anything like that, or at least they better not be. So that's what we're doing, taking a lot of notes.
No worries.
So we'll move on to Ms. Connolly.
How have you implemented technology for instructional purposes?
Well, that's a great question this week. So in the environment we're in, I'm going to start there and I'm going to work backwards. But in the environment we're in, looking forward and not knowing where we're going to end up when this whole situation comes out. I'm not a person who's a doomsdayer, but I am a person who I want to plan long term and I want to plan for the worst case scenario. So my team and I have built a plan that we are baby stepping towards online learning. I don't know that it'll occur, but I know that if it is something that the state tells us we need to do, we need to be ready to do it. So we've begun taking inventory of all of our K-5 devices. We are 1-to-1, 6 through 12. We extended our Schoology platform in the last 2 weeks to be in elementary. So first we gave professional development to our teachers and our parents. We served over 500 parents in a meeting in 3 different meetings just like this, trying to get them up and running on Schoology last week, as well as all of the elementary teachers. So this week they'll go into advanced Schoology training, and we're having them kind of baby step into that platform and make sure they are posting and talking with parents. So we're in the thick of it right now, and I'm really being completely able to go online. But previously, when I started with the district back in 2014, we started the district, it was one of our first goals was to be able to go online and be able to go 1-to-1. So our students really had a lot to do with their backpacks being so heavy and being able to hold those textbooks in one place. That was one of the things we thought would be really neat. And amazingly enough, we built a 4-year plan. And in 4 years, we were able to have that happen. And we are now 1-to-1 from 6 through 12. So technology is a huge part, I think, of our future. It's a huge part of our students' future. But we still need to have a blended learning opportunity. In these times, distance learning is going to become really important, and we just don't know for how long. But even today, our teachers are having to build choice boards, and they have to involve a lot of things that don't always go to technology.
Thank you.
So I'll ask the next one. What are your views about the current curriculum that we use at ACS, and how, if at all, would you change it?
So curriculum to me is a tool. And I think you have to pick a tool that serves your community and that your teachers that are comfortable using. I think teaching is more important than the curriculum. So I don't think I would change anything unless we look at data and we see a trend along a grade band or an element, all the elementary schools. Then we might be able to go back and say, hey, maybe our curriculum isn't driving our teachers to go deep enough into the standards. So for me, I wouldn't make changes unless the data said that it's something that we needed to look at.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Williams.
Teresa, good to see you.
Hello, Ms. Williams.
How are you? In your administration, what avenues are open for you to listen to the concern of employees?
For us, in the whole district office, we have a anonymous line so that teachers or anybody can make statements or complaints without being known, and then we definitely look into that. We'll investigate, but without a name, it's harder to make that happen. But at least they have a point of first contact where they don't feel so much pressure. We have the HR department where they can go and have a conversation with one of the HR representatives in order to have their needs heard. We always recommend that they start at their building leadership level if that's where the issue is occurring. If it's a district problem, then of course they know my phone number and they pretty much all have my cell phone number. So they can call me anytime if they have a district need. But even then, our first recommendation, whether it's a parent or a teacher or a staff member, is to go to your building level administrator, and that's where first stop shop should be for management. And we would back the principals in that and making sure that we're not stepping over those kind of chain of command, but not chain of command, but not stepping over someone to let them solve the problem first. So those are some avenues that our staff members have.
Thank you.
Dr. Biox.
Ms. Price, it's great to see you again.
Good evening.
Most people that know me understand that I'm a huge proponent for legislative advocacy. I believe that it is one of the most important functions of the board and the superintendent. Would you relate to us your legislative advocacy efforts with regard to public education?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start back with my school board days because that's really where I learned the most about public advocacy for public education. And I was in the thick of it when we were trying to become a special school district. And so I did a lot of advocating, whether it was Day on the Hill or whether it was within our own community with our current representatives at that time, making sure that our voices were heard and that they understood where we were coming from our point of view, because they were hearing a lot from other people's points of view. I also, when we were with TSBA, I became the Delta District Director. And so with that, I was able to kind of shape what legislative agenda we had to be able to bring to the voting partners in TSBA. And we did a lot of gathering of information from all different districts, whether it's rural or urban or suburban, to make sure that we were putting out a legislative agenda that would meet the needs of all the districts in Tennessee. For me in the position of superintendency, I think it's of utmost importance that I have relationships with our legislators, local for sure, but even beyond the locality. Because I think sometimes when a legislator is in a rural community, they don't understand what it is like to be in a suburban community outside of a large district. So, I think it's important that we all realize that we have different needs and we've got to find a way to rally the legislators to see education from a public education point of view. There's just a lot of times they put things out, and I was very, very good friends with Ron Lawler, and one of the things he told me was that they felt really good if they could carry 100 bills. And so you think, wow, I mean, that's a whole lot of legislation for a legislator to come up with. And so a lot of times they come up with things that are just, someone tells them, hey, this might be a good idea. And all of a sudden we're having to do PE, 6 times a day and, and teach RTI and teach reading 105 minutes, and they had no idea to even think about what a schedule might look like at a school. So I think it's really important that we are in touch and that we are looking and we're paying attention to what's going on, because that's the other thing that happens. Sometimes they'll slide some things in and they get missed. So I'm very thankful for TSBA for being our eyes and ears sometimes, because they'll catch things before we do. And I think we've even seen that out of TOS. So.
Thanks so much. I love that school board perspective as well. That's awesome. Thanks.
All right, round one's over. Big exhale. Woo! Yeah. All right, we'll go to round two. We'll go back to Mr. Lamar.
Okay, here we go at round two. Ms. Price, how would you work with the school board in the implementation of their strategic plan and policies?
So the strategic plan has to be our guiding principles. It needs to be a fluid document, and it needs to be a document that we are using, as I mentioned before, with our budget, and everything needs to be aligned so that we are going in one direction. I think with the school board, the first part is to start with what is your vision and what is your goals. For that long-term 5-plan look at what the district outcome should be at the end of those 5 years. From there, I would get with the cabinet and departments, and we would discuss what those 5 goals could look like, and start with just a skeleton plan. After getting with the departments, just to get our hands kind of wrapped around what we have put in place and what we could work with, then we would reach out to school leadership, teachers, and other faculty members, include classified in the process. So we make sure we're hearing from all different realms of our faculty. From there, we would go with parents, and I love to involve parents, but more importantly, I love to involve students. I think it's a voice that we often leave out of the conversation. And I think our students could really help shape what education looks like if we listened. So we would start with a parent group, and we would even meet with some high schoolers, possibly some middle schoolers, just to get their ideas on the goals that you all had set forth. After those processes were completed, we will compile that and bring it back and come up with the best strategies and objectives that we could under each of those goals. We would then share that with each of those different committees to make sure that we've captured what they were thinking. After that, present it to the school board and make sure that we're all on the same page.
Thank you. Very good answer. Thanks very much.
All right, Ms. Conley.
Yes, sir. What community organizations or activities do you think the superintendent should participate in? And tell us which of these organizations you already participate.
So for Germantown Municipal Schools, I have presented to Leadership Germantown this year. I'm not currently involved in going to monthly meetings, but I've been invited to many of the meetings just to kind of sell our story for whether it was Kiwanis Club or some of the Rotary Club, things like that. So I think it's really important, first of all, that our entire community is involved in our story. It helps us bridge the gap between what public education is providing for our community and helps garner support when we need support from the outside. Previously, when I worked at the dealership, I think I was in every single one of them in Millington. So I've sat on the YMCA board, I've sat on the Exchange Club board, was very involved in the Chamber of Commerce. And I think all of those things will be really important for a superintendent to be involved in a small community. It's definitely how we built relationships in Millington as quickly as we did, because we immersed ourselves in the community. And again, we shared our story and got to learn all about everybody else's story. So it makes that much the stronger relationships, again, when we need to, gain support or it gives us this platform to share the wonderful things that Arlington Community Schools is doing.
Thank you.
All right. So what do you believe are the most important qualities that a principal should have?
So most important, number one for me, is character and a love for children. I have the same philosophy when I hire teachers. Skill is something that can be taught, but if you don't have a love for children and you don't have high moral characters, then I think you're going to have a difficult time being a successful leader. Principals need to be able to see school from the eyes of the classroom. Teachers are on the front lines. They're the ones doing the work every single day. And, sometimes teachers struggle, and we need to know how to get in there and support them. I think that professional development and knowing how to make sure you're individualizing that professional development to help that teacher, whether it's a brand new teacher or maybe it's a teacher who's been in education a little bit longer and just has had a hard time making the shifts. But I think we have to invest in our people. I know that, in the future, it's looking like education is more and more drying up. So a principal needs to really take care of her faculty, kind of like her flock or his. We have to make sure that we're meeting their needs so they're the best person they can be every single day in front of those students, because that's where the action happens.
Awesome. Thank you. Ms. Williams.
Ms. Price, explain what you have done or will do to build and maintain a good relationship with the board.
So board relation in a superintendent position is the main driver. it is the face of what the community is going to see. So it is extremely important to have solid communication and positive relationships with each and every board member. To do that, I would make sure that I could meet with you weekly, or at least we could have a phone call. I also think it's important to keep you apprised of what's going on a broader level. So maybe it's a newsletter that we would send to you monthly, or however much you think you want to be communicated with. I think that for you to be successful board members, you have to know what's going on in the schools. And it's up to the superintendent to communicate that to you. Just as in the superintendency with the cabinet, I can't be everywhere all the time, but I would expect my cabinet to, keep me up to date. That would be my job with the school board, is to make sure, A, you're never surprised, because none of us like those in this sense. And that B, that I'm meeting the needs of the strategic plan, and I'm using the budget to meet those needs of the strategic plan, and it's all in the name of making sure that every student has the most success rate they absolutely can.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Biox.
Yes, Mrs. Price, these are uncertain times for any superintendent with regards to a governor and commissioner of education that have demeaned the job our teachers and administrators are doing. As teachers become responsible for more student-related issues such as poverty, drug abuse, multiple medical problems, including mental health, and the myriad of social issues thrust upon teachers every day, please tell us your legislative plan to prove to the state legislature how well public school is actually doing.
So I think to me, it's all about a story, and a story has to be supported by many different things. A story starts for me with data. I always want to go to the data and let it speak to me first, so that I have a full understanding of what that looks like for each and every child. And you think SEL data, what can that look like? Well, there are lots of ways to collect how we're doing in the realm of student social emotional learning, and our teachers and how they're feeling emotionally, because every day something new is put on them, but nothing's taken off that plate. So my legislative agenda would be built around facts and data. That's what's going to make our story more believable and less deniable. From there, I think it comes down to having those interactions with teachers and with parents and students, and so you can have more of that heart story. I think that's important too. I think a lot of times our representatives, they go out in the community and they shake hands and they make a speech, and they may talk to a couple people, but they're not getting to what the heart of what's really going on in our classrooms. I would also invite our legislators in to see what's going on. I think that's really important to have an actual observation, because it's a lot easier to brush us off if it's just a conversation, or if I'm just sending an email. It's not, I don't take it personally, but when I have to be involved and I have to see it, it's a lot harder for me to deny what my eyes see. So those are the ways that I think that I think we could build a strong legislative agenda. Wherever those needs take us next, because at this point, we don't know. I don't even know what to ask for next, except for please just stop for a minute and take a breath. I just, this is such an unprecedented environment we're in, and I don't want students to lose learning, but at the same time, I don't want to keep redoing it. I want to get it right the first time.
Excellent answer. Thank you so much.
All right, final Jeopardy here. So we'll move to round 3, and so we'll go back to Mr. Lamar. Hugh, you may be muted.
was talking to myself, no doubt. Here we go again. Second try. What steps would you take to ensure school funds are spent wisely, accounted for properly, and in compliance with state and federal mandates?
So with funding, I think that a yearly audit is, I'm sure, amongst your policies, but if it's not, then it should be. I think we should be auditing our schools on a yearly basis. And sometimes that can be an internal audit, but I think at least every other year, every 3 years, that probably needs to be an external audit. Or every year an external audit with the schools also. For fiscal responsibility, again, I think it goes back to that strategic plan and making sure that we're spending those funds the way we planned them as a group over those 5 years. For federal compliance, there's a lot of different federal laws that come with that. That was probably the biggest learning curve I had when we started Germantown Municipal Schools. I had done some things with federal programs, but not the budget and not the spending. And so I spent a lot of my PD hours those first 2 years learning federal programs and federal funding. And there's a lot of strings attached there. So it's going to take having somebody on the staff that really understands those compliance issues and make sure that we're only approving things that are compliant so that we don't end up at the end of the day having to write a check back for misuse of the federal funds. All of the funding should, again, work hand in hand and should come back to that strategic plan. I strongly believe in using dollars to make sure we're making gains toward the goals we set as a district.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Conley.
What have you done to improve the teachers' and students' knowledge and use of technology?
So students and teachers are on a different learning curve this day and age. A lot of times our students could teach our teachers about the technology, and probably even myself sometimes. What we've done as a district is make sure that there's a variation of what they're introduced to. So we have not, at first we were completely Apple products, and we did that because our teachers had a lot of PD around those products. We were a brand new district and we were doing a lot of new things. We were, new curriculum, a lot of new things were coming at them, so we didn't want to change their tool. As we've gone, we've added things in along the way. So we've added iPads and now we've added some Chromebooks. I think it's important to have a variety of experiences so that when our students do enter post-secondary applications, whether it's career or college, that they've been introduced to many different types of technology. Some of the ways we've done that, I think I explained before. Just this week, we've held our very first online training, not only with teachers, but also with parents. And it's been really successful. I think there's a use for this type of new meeting style that we're having, a new way of delivering PD, because you can hit that record button. And we've posted our PD, our parent PD, right to our website. So if you missed it, or you don't want to be in this kind of environment, you can watch it on your own time and learn how to use Schoology and learn how to use Google Hangouts. With the students, we have currently a CTT in every building, and that's a technology specialist. And they work with the teachers to help them make sure that from kindergarten on, they're getting those experiences on how to manipulate technology. And then with the teachers, we also do professional development before and after school on any new programs or advancing them in programs that we have, or just new exciting ways to deliver instruction.
Thank you.
Ms. Price, do you have an idea or do you have in mind how you would staff the central office, those positions, and who those people might be?
So I think coming in, I would not change anything. I think for, a new leader coming in, it's building relationships that are already there, observing the landscape, understanding what positions people are in. When I went in as the principal at Dogwood, you think you see things and you want to upset the apple cart, but I had to sit back for a year and observe teachers. A lot of times, we have some of our staff members maybe not in the best position for them, and that's something I pride myself in is watching and working with staff members and then getting them in the right place. And sometimes that's just what needs to be done. I'll give you 2 examples. At Dogwood, we had one teacher, and in the first 15 days of school, I had every parent complain about the teacher. When I went and observed her lessons were solid. I'm not saying stellar, but they were solid. What I realized about her was her favorite 2 things were math and science. And I also realized that she was teaching first grade, but when she was in the hallway, she was more attracted to the older children. And so I pulled her in and I just said, I'm just wondering, would you be interested in maybe moving up in a grade level, and maybe I just get you teaching math and science? And you would have thought she won the lottery. It's all about observing people's behavior. And I think was that, my special ed background and behavior specialist background, it comes in handy a lot. The second thing is when I came back to district office, my department was uneasy. I had left them, and it was really hard to go to Dogwood, but I knew I wanted to do it. And so coming back, I was a hard pill to swallow. I wasn't sure how they were going to receive me. And when we first built the district, it was quick and throw people in places and learn really fast this. And so one of the people in my department, I just saw something in her that maybe wasn't shining as bright as it could have. And so we had another person leave. And so before filling that position, I went and said, would you be interested in maybe taking this on? And once again, I had the same reaction. It was like I opened up her world again back to what she really wanted to be doing. And I couldn't have made it through the last 3 weeks without her or the team she's built, putting all the different learning opportunities together, holding content lead meetings. I mean, my goodness. So I think she found her person again. So I think it's really important to observe people's behavior and really pay attention to what their passions are. And at district office, again, I wouldn't come in and change anything. I'm going to observe and just make sure that people are in the right places.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll move to Ms. Williams.
Well, we've asked you a lot of questions. I'm wondering if you want to say something that we have not asked you or something you really would like to tell us about. If that's your wish, you go right ahead.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. I know I talk a lot about data, and I don't want you to think I'm data crazy, but I do believe data is a way that holds us accountable. And one thing I'm really proud of that I kind of developed with, and I don't want to take all the credit, I developed it with my assistant principal and a teacher at Dogwood Elementary School. When I entered back into Dogwood, they really hadn't looked at data in 3 years. In fact, when I asked one of the second grade teachers about the SAT-10, they were like, I don't think we took that. And I was holding the data in front of me. So we knew we had to get them on a track of not seeing data as a bad thing. It's not a way to hold people accountable. It's a way to hold you to the reality in front of you, whether what you're doing is working or not. So we started with student data trackers and had our teachers do those. And that's nothing new. I think we did those at Lakeland Elementary, and I'm sure we did them at a lot of elementary schools. With those data trackers, as a principal, I could then place students with the right teacher the next year. And so all those little details make the classroom better each and every year. from there, I developed the teacher data tracker. One of the things that we, were noticing was maybe absences were coming into play. Teachers really didn't know where their refinement was on their evaluation, and they weren't sure. They couldn't put a handle on which child in the room was receiving RTI services for comprehension or phonics. So we made them come up with a teacher data tracker. Well, we provided them one, and they had to fill it in. And that way they could keep track all year long, and they could see where their refinement was, and everything was on one sheet of paper. That they brought directly to the professionalism meeting. And it led the conversation. We had all of their things in front of them so that it became non-punitive. It became, wow, now I see, look, I got PD on this. It was a refinement area, and the next time I got a 5 in that. And so they start making those connections as to why we do things. So from there, we developed the principal data tracker based on the TILs. And so this way, it really gives principals a pulse on their entire school. Again, they're tracking their teachers' absences. They're tracking overall school data. They're looking at their overall school refinement reinforcement for evaluations. With those, it's made a big difference, and people aren't afraid of data anymore. They just see it as a tool in order to make it better. So we took it to the local level first and presented. We were asked to come to the state and present 3 times last year, and then we actually presented at the National Principals Conference. So it's something I'm proud of, and I think it's something that takes that worry out of data and puts it into the perspective of just making us better each and every day.
Great. Thank you very much.
Dr. Viox.
Yes, Ms. Price. I'm just going to throw this question out there. You take it any way you want, any direction you want. How do you demonstrate ethical behavior?
So number one is modeling. We have to model what we expect. So if I'm going to expect ethical and moral behavior from anybody around me, whether it's employees or students, then it better be the way I am myself. So that's number one. Number two is seeking out, whether it's leadership books or different modes of professional development, just to keep my mind fresh and always on the look to be better tomorrow than I was today. I think that also is a good modeling practice for others around me. So just realizing that you never know who's watching, and having high integrity and being that person all the time, I think is the best way to demonstrate high moral and ethical behavior.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, that wraps up our lightning round. Hey, so that does wrap us up for the night. Anything else that you want to tell us, something we didn't ask, or anything else you want to say to us before we wrap up here tonight, Ms. Price?
Just make sure. So I think just to end it off, again, just honored, and it's been a pleasure to talk with each of you tonight. I look forward to whatever the future holds. I love my job now and confident and ready to be a superintendent. And I have a background with Arlington. We lived in the Bolton area for 12 years. So Arlington was my community, since there wasn't much more than fields where I lived. So I just thank you all for the opportunity and letting me share myself with you tonight, and look forward to whatever the plan is for me next. And I just always believe everything happens for a reason. And I wish you all the best. And I hope that Arlington sees nothing but success for the coming years. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Ms. Price. Thank you. I really, really thanks for your time tonight, and for, again, working with us through our working around, where we are in today's world and environment today. Thanks for the interest in our superintendent position. We will take all this and digest it for a few days, and then we'll get together and meet and talk some more. And then I'll be back in touch with you to kind of tell you what next steps are, what that looks like from here.
Okay, I appreciate it. Y'all have a good evening and stay safe.
Now you do the same.
Wash your hands.
That's right. Thanks. Bye-bye.